We are now entering day 7 since a portion of a 12-story beachfront condo came crashing down in the middle of the night. 12 people are now confirmed dead. 149 remain unaccounted for. More than 50 agencies and 900 personnel are working on the site, including teams from Israel and Mexico. No one has been pulled alive from the mountain of rubble since Thursday morning, hours after the collapse. Joining us now from Surfside, Florida, NBC News correspondent Antonia Hilton. Antonia, what more can you tell us this morning?
Good morning, Mika. Well, the situation here on the ground in Surfside continues to be agonizing as we now stretch into the 7th day. There are potential storms coming which could complicate and further slow down this recovery process. Right now, they're averaging finding about 1 body a day. Last night, we found out that the death toll went up to 12, and that brings the number of people unaccounted for here to 149. And that number has just been completely overwhelming for people to process here. You know, this rubble site is incredibly dangerous. The workers have had to move through in wind and rain and fires at times, incredibly meticulously. But for the families, it feels slow, and the frustration here is building. And, you know, there's this public narrative of the possibility of miracles, of people who may still be pulled alive from the rubble. But privately and on the community level, what you hear are families growing incredibly angry and frustrated at times, and wanting officials to be more frank in their public statements about the magnitude of death that may come out of this crisis. And so, you know, yesterday I actually got the chance to get up a bit closer to the rubble site, and I also spoke to a volunteer who has been there every day. And what you see and what you hear is about a pancake effect, that this building has collapsed in such a way that there aren't that many open spaces or maintained structures. It's hard for workers to get through the rubble, and it's hard to see bodies. That's part of why this process is moving slow. And so what you hear from volunteers is that there's a desire for officials to be frank about the fact that they may not pull out too many more bodies. It may be that families find out that they are receiving body parts of their family members. And there's a desire here now for there to be more honesty about that. Mayor Levine Cava has spoken of it and tried to talk about that sort of grim outlook. But there's frustration here as people want to start moving forward with closure in their grieving. And it'll be interesting to see when President Biden comes here tomorrow if some of those private conversations about grieving become more public, because he is known for talking to families in frank terms, having an empathetic approach in these interactions. And so, you know, I think there's eagerness here as people know he's going to spend quite a bit of time with the loved ones here to see how the tone shifts here in Surfside tomorrow. Mika.
Very well put. NBC's Antonia Hilton, thank you very much. And Florida officials are pledging to begin several investigations into the Surfside building collapse. State Attorney Catherine Fernandez-Rundle will pursue a grand jury investigation to examine factors and decisions that led to the Champlain Towers disaster. She also raised the possibility of potential criminal investigations. Meanwhile, a resident of Champlain Towers South filed a class action lawsuit less than 24 hours after the deadly collapse. The suit said the condominium association failed to adequately secure the building. And at all relevant times, the defendant was aware or reasonably should have been aware that the plaintiffs and the class's lives and property were at risk due to the lack of precautions taken.
So let's bring in right now State Attorney for Palm Beach County, Dave Ehrenberg. Dave, before we get to the legal side of this, let's just talk as two Floridians that have seen boom, bust, boom, bust along the coastlines. I did in Northwest Florida, you know, for 30 years, people just throwing up condominiums overnight. And then a recession would come along, they'd go bankrupt, other people would pick it up. It was absolute chaos. And it's really been that way in Florida since the beginning of the 20th century. A lot of booms, a lot of busts. And a lot of those condos that were built, and you've been in them, I've been in them. We grew up, you know, going to friends' places and everybody. You know, some of them were really cheaply made, and you could tell that they were built very quickly during sort of a boom period. So as I've been talking this week about 92 and Andrew and the building codes that have gone up post 92, I wonder how tough Florida regulators, Florida legislators, Florida leaders are going to now be on bending over backwards to make sure all of these condos, some of them built really badly 40 years ago, are secure for the residents.
Yeah, good morning, Joe. I'm born and raised in North Miami, which is not far from Surfside, so I know the community well. And there is the demarcation line in 1992. That's when Hurricane Andrew hit us, Category 5 storm. And that's when the Florida legislature then changed the building codes to strengthen them. Because before, you're right, you had these flimsy buildings built and they blew away in the wind. And now we have stronger codes, but this has shaken the faith of a lot of people in the oversight. There's a rule in Dade County that says you have to have recertification of these buildings every 40 years. But that doesn't take into account the new challenge of climate change. And so perhaps that should be changed to have a more frequent review, especially since there's new technology that will lower the cost of these reviews and get inside the structures, technology that didn't exist 40 years ago. So I think this is going to cause a series of investigations that will lead to changes, if not in the law, at least in the implementation of the law.
Well, David, let's face it. Before this tragedy, I'm sure there were a lot of regulators, a lot of local regulators, city regulators, county regulators, state regulators that weren't going to go in and tell, an entire condo, people living in a condo, hey, we're seeing some cracks here. You're all going to have to move out and we're going to have to fix this now. They're just because this had never happened before. I wonder if there was too much pressure against taking that dramatic step that would have saved all of those lives.
Yeah, and that goes, Joe, to the possible criminality here. It's too early to speculate because we don't know what caused the building collapse yet, and we probably won't know for many months. That's why I'm glad that Kathy Fernandez-Rundle, the state attorney down in Miami-Dade, is convening that grand jury to get to the bottom of this. But to have a crime here, you need more than what's presently being reported. You have to have someone who knew that destruction was imminent and did nothing about it. And that's different than what is being reported right now. There was that 2018 engineering report. The engineer hired by the Condo Association flagged major structural damage at the building, but nothing in the letter gave an air of imminent danger. And I think that's what you would need to rise the level of criminality. Plus, the board at the condo started to collect assessments to conduct repairs, and the repairs were incomplete at the time the building collapsed. But that's going to be considered by any prosecutor determining charges.
And obviously, the legal standard for civil liability much lower than for criminal liability. Tell us about these class action lawsuits. What do those look like? Do those seem to be standing on a bit firmer ground?
Yeah, it's much easier to file these civil lawsuits than a criminal action. And there's been at least 3 different civil lawsuits that have been filed for negligence against the Condo Association for a violation of their duty of care to the residents of the building for allegedly ignoring long-needed repairs. And I expect many more to come. And you reported about there's one lawsuit seeking class action status. I do think the actions will be consolidated into a class action at some point. And you're right, Joe. When you file these civil lawsuits, you just have to prove them by preponderance of the evidence. Is it more likely than not that the defendant did it? In a criminal context, you've got to prove that the defendant did it beyond any reasonable doubt, a lot higher burden. Plus, you can't just go into criminal court with a negligence claim. You've got to get more than that. You even have to get more than gross negligence. It's got to be up to what's called culpable negligence. And in Florida, the statute is manslaughter by culpable negligence, which is a second-degree felony punishable with up to 15 years in state prison. You'd have to show that someone had a reckless disregard for human life.